Hello guys, and welcome to a new episode of the dev course. So today we are going to first have a look at the assignment from last course that we did, and after that we are going to have a look into some more variables. We're going to have a look into loops, tables, and events. Okay, so let's get into it, guys. And I want to start off by saying sorry for not sending the new episode on the what's it called, last Friday. It's been busy, haven't really had the time to do it. So here we go. This is where we're at right now. So we made our clock, so to speak, which just ramps up like this. Okay. So how do we make this into an actual clock, guys? So what we can do is we can have the clock. There is a statement we can use on the server side that is called OS time, like this. So if you have a look into this one, if you just print time on the server side, and we'll see what actually gets printed if we restart the script right now. So restart first script. Let's see if anything gets printed. So it prints a lot of numbers. And what can this possibly be, guys? So this is the I believe it's the hex code for the current time. Could that be? So we need to adjust this so it actually looks proper. And I believe it's done like this. So we grab os.date and then we specify what we want from this. And we want hours and a semicolon. And then minutes, like this. And then we have OS time after it. This is a Lua native. So let's have a look into it and see if it makes any changes. And we're missing a bracket. There we go. That's why it didn't do anything. And the time is 21:24, which is exactly the same time as my computer, as you can see here down here. So that's how we actually get the actual time right now. So how do we transfer this from the server side into the client side? To do that, we need to use events, okay? So what we'll do is we'll trigger a client event, and we'll call this event send time. And we need to specify after the trigger client event, when we send an event from server side back to client side, we need to specify what client we want to send this to. And the clients we are going to, the clients that, how we specify this is we use the client source, which starts from the number 1 and goes up. And if we want to trigger a client event on all of the clients, we use the -1. And since this is just a clock, we can use the -1. And after that, we send the parameters that we want to bring with us. So instead of having this as a print, we'll create a variable called current time equals the time, and then we will bring this with us. So we'll send current time into this. So now we need to go into the client side and create this event. And we create events by the syntax called register. And this is a client event, so this is a net event, register net event, like this. And we call this we call this send time, was it? Let me just check, yeah, send time. And then after that, there's always a function like that. And inside of the function is where we specify what parameters we sent with us. And in this case, we sent the time with us. And we'll call this on the client side, we can call this clock. It doesn't matter, we can call this anything. It's still going to be the current time that we sent with us, but it doesn't have to have the same name when it's being sent from one event to another or from one site to another. This is not event to event. This is just a trigger event that goes off right away. And inside of here, instead of having clock equals to 0, we can set clock equals clock, right? And that should basically update this one. But that might actually be a bit weird, right? That might actually look weird. So how do we fix this? Yeah, so we'll just rename this so we don't get confused, and we'll call this just time. And then we have the clock equals time, which is in here. And that's going to update this one, so we're not going to need this one anymore. But we actually need to have this, because this will trigger right away, so clock won't have a value for now. So what we can do is we can just set it up to be a value like this, clock equals 0. So we add that back, and if we ensure our script now, ensure first script, then it's just counting up, so it doesn't seem to update our clock, right? Why is that? Well, maybe it's because of this one. So let's have a look and see what happens if we do that. Then basically nothing happens, right? We can't see it. And that is basically because we haven't done this part yet. So this triggers a bit too fast. What happens if we take this loop, the while loop that we created, and we'll put that loop underneath here. Then we will set the clock equals time before the loop starts, and then draw it out. So let's see what happens now if we ensure it. And it's still not showing us anything. So just to make sure, let's do a print right here and we'll see. Does this run? No, it doesn't run. Why is it not running? Trigger client event send time -1. So why is this not being sent over? So let's put a print here just to debug. All done. And if we ensure it now, we see the server-side print says all done. But the trigger client event doesn't seem to do anything, right? So if we put a print even further up, what happens then? Still nothing. So what could be wrong here, guys? Everything is set up correctly. We have client.lua, we have server.lua. Let's see if we put this inside a thread. I don't think that's going to make any difference whatsoever, but let's see. Okay, now we're getting the print. And the timer is showing. So we needed to have that inside of a thread, actually. That's interesting, right? So now we have the current time, but if we wait another minute or we add seconds into it, so we'll do percent seconds like that and restart it. Let's see. Now we have the seconds as well. We see that it doesn't update, right? Why doesn't it update? Well, this is only sending out, we are only grabbing the time once and then sending it over. What we need to do is actually, we need to trigger this way more often. So what we'll do is we need another loop, while true do, to make it loop forever, right? And basically we can have a wait time for 1000, which is 1000 milliseconds, which will make it only update once every second. And then we can grab the actual time of that case right there. And then just end the loop. And if we have a look right now, then it's being updated every second, right? But our all done print is being printed all the time as well. And this one as well. So actually we won't need the clock equals time anymore. That's a redundant variable, right? So if we remove this and we'll change this to time, which we sent over from the server side to time, it's still going to work the same. Oh, but something is a bit messed up with our clock. And why is that? Let's see if we do a clear draw origin, because right now it's stacking the times on top of each other, and it still is doing it. Wait, could it be that the wait timer is a bit too short to actually clear this out? No, that's still not working. And if we make it with even more wait time, then it's going to blink. Yeah. And it still saves the previous ones. That's interesting, right? How could that possibly be? Well, that is because we are triggering this event, which shows the time. But since we're triggering this multiple times, it's being run multiple times, right? So when we, 1 second later, when we send a new one, it's still going through the same thing. So basically what we need to do is make it stop when 1 second have passed. So we could still keep this 0 or 1, doesn't really matter. And if we do something like, let me think a bit. So if we make the while loop actually end when 1 second has passed, then that should be fine, right? So what we'll do is we'll create another variable called counter, and that's going to be 0, okay? And then counter equals counter plus 1, right? And we'll keep this going while counter is less than 999. And let's see what actually happens now if we run this. No, it's still not working properly. And that could be because it takes some time to send it over. Let's see if we do like 900. No, it still doesn't remove it. Clear, draw, origin. Don't think that's going to make any difference. No, and it's still like this doesn't trigger in time, right? And let's see if we print the counter. Oh yeah, it's not even close to counting fast enough, right? No. Maybe it is. Oh no, it's going way, way, way too fast. So there is a bunch of different ways we can fix this, and I'm going to be lazy and just do it the easy way. And that would be to actually remove this weight. Remove the counter, remove this one, and just use that. And then we'll go to the server side and we'll change this to run every frame. And if we, no, well, and it's client side. Where did we, there we go. Huh. Oh, I forgot. That was my mistake. So right now, it's not being overwritten, but it's blinking a lot, right? So how do we fix this? Well, we could just create a thread again, a function that's basically just showing the time, right? So that would be while true do wait 0, and then we will basically just do that. So we're back to this again and end the loop and drawing the current time. Clock equals time, and we'll draw the clock down here. And this might not work off the bat, we'll see. Yeah, it is. So this actually works, as we can see. And then we can actually make it so it doesn't send it as often as well. So we'll make it only update that once every second. And that's our working clock. So as you probably seen a few times now, when I am writing these variables, I want to put local in front of them, right? And what makes this a difference? That means that it's a local variable, which means if I create a local variable inside of this event, then I can print out that variable clock inside of the event. So if we run this, and we're getting the clock right here, so that is being printed as intended. But if we move the print to have it run, let's say here, then it doesn't get a value. And that's because it's a local variable. So if we make this back to the previous one, then it's not nil anymore, and it just updates. And if it's a local, then you can only use it within that parent directory, which in this case is the sendTime event. So in this case, we can either have this as a global variable, which means it could be grabbed anywhere, and we can actually even grab it inside of the another, not server side, but inside of another file if needed. Or actually, we can't. No, we can't grab it server side since it's not shared. So either we can make it a global, or we can define it as a local variable up on top, like local clock, like that. Then we just have defined that we have a variable called clock. It doesn't contain any information whatsoever, which will make the value of this variable to be null, or nil as it's called in Lua. So it won't have a value until our sendTime goes in and set the value to time. And now it's going to print the time properly, like this. So we can remove this part and make sure that our clock works. So that is how a local variable works. So let's jump into how we make the speedometer, which was the assignment for today. And first off, we are going to need to get the actual speed of the vehicle that we are using. And there is a native for that, which should be get entity speed. So this returns the speed of the entity, and it's bringing back in, I think it's units per second, but I'm not sure. I'm not sure at all, actually. But here it says in the native reference guide that if you take the value that you get back from get entity speed and multiply it by this or multiply it by that, then you get kilometers per hour or miles per hour. So in this case, we are going to make kilometers per hour. So we need the get entity speed command, right? Type that in here, use a comment so it doesn't run. Get entity speed from entity, okay? And what else are we going to need? Yeah, we're going to need to see if we are in a vehicle. So if in a vehicle, so then we need to write an if statement to see that. So we have this one, which actually checks or a loop that is being run every frame. And we are grabbing the player and we're grabbing the coordinates of the player. In this case, we aren't going to need the actual coordinates of the player. We are going to need the speed. Okay, so how do we do that? First off, we can make the X player be a local variable since we're only using it inside of this loop. So we can create another one called in vehicle like that. And then we need to use another FiveM native called is ped in any vehicle. So we need to specify the ped and at get in. And the second part right here is not needed. So you can set it to true to also consider attempting to enter a vehicle. So in this case, we only need to get if this is if the ped is in a vehicle, and it's going to return a Boolean value for us. So then we'll use that is ped in any vehicle. And the first part was the actual ped. And the ped is the player ped ID. So we can either enter player ped ID or we can just use the xPlayer variable that we entered before. So xPlayer. And then if, that's an if statement, if in vehicle equals true, then we want to print the get entity speed of the entity, and the entity in this case is going to be the vehicle that we're inside of. So we need to actually grab the vehicle that we're inside of. And to do that, we use the FiveM native called get vehicle ped is in. This one. So that will return the vehicle that we're inside of, and we need to specify the ped, and we have the last vehicle as an option as well. We're not going to use that, we're just going to use the ped. So local in x vehicle in this case equals get vehicle ped is in, and x player for the player ped ID, because it's the ped that we want to check. So that will store the vehicle inside the variable called x vehicle. So now we can grab the speed equals to get entity speed from entity, and the entity is the x vehicle. And then we can just make it draw the speed. And we put an end to it to make sure that our if statement is working, or it has ended, sorry. So let's see if this actually works. So if we ensure this script now, and we're not getting any errors, and we'll take a car. Let's use a Sultan. And we are, as far as I can see, I'm not getting any prints or any text. And that is because I was a bit stupid and removed the X player position. So we need to grab that again. Local X player position equals, do you guys remember? Get entity coords for X player. Let's see if it works now. Still nothing. That's interesting. So we'll put a print right here to see in vehicle, and then we want to print our in vehicle value in V. Oh, and we see here that it doesn't return a Boolean value. It returns as 1 when we're inside the vehicle. If we get out of the vehicle, then it returns a Boolean value as false. So we'll change this to 1 instead, and we'll see if this fixes it. So if you get into the vehicle now, we had print, there it is. So this is our actual speed. And if we remember, then we were supposed to actually get entity speed to take the value and multiply it by 3.6 to get the kilometers per hour. So let's do that. Speed equals get entity speed times 3.6. Like that. And if we ensure this one now it's returning kilometers per hour. And it looks kind of bad to have a speedometer which shows decimals. So if we use math.floor and then put all of this inside brackets, then it will take that value without decimals and round it downwards. Round it down, maybe? So let's see if that works. So now we get that, okay? And to make it look a bit more pretty, we can do something like this and add kilometers per hour. And if we restart it now, it says 0 kilometers per hour. And when we start driving, it's updating to our current speed. And that's how we make a speedometer, guys. So we've gone through quite a lot, and I hope you guys have learned some stuff. And I'm really sorry to inform you guys, but this is going to be the end of the beginner course. There's still a lot to learn. We haven't gone through all of the Lua natives yet, but we've gotten a good a good base to stand on how to create scripts and read code and start writing our own code. So with this said, I am going to turn this off and have it as the last episode of the beginner course, guys. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope you learned something, and I'll see you guys.